I helped my beautiful neighbor build a treehouse. Then her little daughter changed everything. The first time my neighbor knocked on my door, she wasn't holding cookies. She was holding a broken birdhouse. I heard you're good at fixing things. I smiled. I fix furniture. She looked at the birdhouse. Wood is wood. Before I could answer, a tiny voice shouted from behind her. And if you do a good job, you get promoted. I looked around. A little girl with messy brown curls stepped onto the porch wearing bright pink rain boots even though the sun was shining. She smiled proudly. I'm Ava. My mom forgets to introduce me sometimes. Her mother laughed. I'm Claire. And apparently, I'm terrible at introductions. I shook both their hands. Ethan. Ava looked at the broken birdhouse. Can you save it? I turned it over carefully. One side had completely fallen apart. The good news? It can be fixed. She jumped excitedly. I told you, Mom. Claire smiled. I promised her we'd hang it before spring. Ava suddenly looked at me with suspicious eyes. Can you climb trees? I think so. She nodded. Good. Because the birdhouse goes up there. She pointed toward the biggest oak tree in their backyard. I laughed. That's pretty high. She shrugged. So are my expectations. Claire covered her face. I'm raising a tiny project manager. I noticed. Ava smiled proudly. It's a full-time job. Half an hour later, I carried my toolbox across the street. Claire had already placed lemonade on the backyard table. I wasn't sure what carpenters drink. I looked at the glasses. This is perfect. Ava whispered loudly. Mom spent 10 minutes cutting lemons into heart shapes. Claire nearly dropped the pitcher. Ava! What? I thought he should feel welcome. I looked inside my glass. Tiny lemon hearts floated on top. I couldn't stop smiling. I've never received decorative lemonade before. Claire laughed. Please pretend you didn't notice. Too late. I think this might be the fanciest drink I've ever had. Ava pointed at her mom. See? He noticed. Claire sighed dramatically. I live with a professional commentator. After repairing the birdhouse, I climbed the ladder. Ava stood below, wearing a toy construction helmet. Safety first. I appreciate that. If you fall. She paused. My mom is a nurse. Claire laughed. That isn't exactly reassuring. I was trying to help. I know. As I secured the birdhouse to the tree, 2 bluebirds landed on a nearby branch. Ava gasped. They came to inspect your work. I climbed down. Do I pass? She looked at the birds, then back at me. They didn't complain. I'll take that as a compliment. Claire carried out a small box. I almost forgot. What's that? A thank you gift. Inside were homemade cinnamon rolls. You baked these? She nodded. I bake whenever I'm nervous. So, you were nervous about asking your neighbor to fix a birdhouse? She smiled. No. I was nervous about finally introducing myself. For a second, neither of us looked away. Then Ava suddenly stood between us. Great. Now you know each other's names. We can skip to being best friends. Claire laughed so hard she had to sit down. Ethan, I'm really sorry. Don't be. I think she's making excellent progress. Ava proudly folded her arms. I have another project. Claire immediately pointed her finger. No. Ava looked confused. But you don't even know what it is. I know you. She turned toward me with the biggest smile. Do you know how to build treehouse? I laughed. I might. She clapped excitedly. Perfect. Because I already drew the plans. She pulled a colorful drawing from behind her back. Across the top, written in giant letters, were the words, Operation, Best Treehouse Ever. I looked at Claire. She looked at me. Then we both started laughing. Neither of us realized that little drawing was about to change all 3 of our lives. The next morning, I walked outside carrying my coffee. Across the street, Ava was already sitting beneath the oak tree. She had a tape measure around her neck, a pencil behind her ear, and a serious expression on her face. I laughed. Should I be worried? She looked up. You're late. I've been waiting 7 whole minutes. I'm sorry. There was a very important customer. Oh, a squirrel. She nodded thoughtfully. Reasonable. I walked into the backyard. Claire was kneeling beside several wooden boards. I tried reading a treehouse guide online, and I learned that I should never build one alone. I smiled. Good thing you found free labor. She laughed. I was hoping you'd say that. We spent the next hour measuring wood. Well, Claire and I measured. Ava supervised. No. She pointed at one board. That one looks crooked. It isn't. It feels crooked. Claire whispered. Don't argue. She'll start bringing out rulers. I own 3. Ava replied proudly. I looked at Claire. She's listening to us. She always is. Around noon, I accidentally hit my thumb with the hammer. Ouch. Ava gasped dramatically. Construction emergency. Claire rushed over. Let me see. I'm fine. She gently took my hand anyway. You definitely hit it. It's already turning red. Before I could answer, Ava quietly pulled out a tiny dinosaur bandage. I've been saving this. For what? A hero. I looked at the cartoon dinosaur. I'd be honored. Claire laughed so hard she had to look away. I can't believe she carries emergency dinosaur bandages. Ava shrugged. You never know. A little later, we stopped for lunch. Claire brought out grilled cheese sandwiches and homemade tomato soup. I hope you're hungry. I skipped breakfast. Ava looked at me with wide eyes. You skipped breakfast. I was busy. She looked horrified. Mom, I don't think we can trust him. Claire smiled. Why? People who skip breakfast make risky decisions. I laughed. Like helping build giant tree hut. Exactly. After lunch, we finally lifted the first wall into place. Ava clapped like we'd finished a skyscraper. This is amazing. Claire stepped back beside me. You know, I haven't seen her this excited in a long time. I looked at Ava pretending to salute every piece of wood. She makes everything feel like an adventure. Claire's smile became softer. That's something she got from her dad. I stayed quiet. She looked toward the unfinished treehouse. He always promised he'd build one. We even bought the wood. But she stopped speaking. She didn't need to finish. I understood. He passed away before he could start. She nodded slowly. For 2 years, I couldn't even look at these boards. I thought finishing it without him would feel wrong. I looked at the half-built frame. Maybe. But I don't think promises disappear. They just wait for someone brave enough to finish them. Claire looked at me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Ava suddenly shouted from the ladder. Guys, we have another problem. I looked up. What happened? She held up the blueprint. I just realized this treehouse doesn't have room for a snack shelf. I laughed. That's the emergency? She nodded seriously. Where else are we supposed to keep cookies? Claire wiped away a tear. But this time, it wasn't from sadness. It was because she couldn't stop laughing. As we all laughed together, none of us noticed the elderly woman watching from the neighboring yard. She smiled warmly, then quietly whispered to herself, he finally kept his promise. The next morning, I walked into Claire's backyard expecting another day of building. Instead, I found Ava sitting on the porch with her arms crossed. She looked disappointed. Oh no, I said. Did I fail another inspection? She sighed dramatically. The workers are exhausted. I think they deserve donuts. I laughed. That's a very professional opinion. It came after careful research. What research? I was hungry. Claire walked outside carrying 2 mugs of coffee. I tried telling her cereal was enough. Ava shook her head. You can't build dreams on cereal. I looked at Claire. I think she has a point. Claire smiled. You two are impossible. 15 minutes later, the 3 of us were sitting at the neighborhood bakery. Ava had powdered sugar all over her nose. She didn't know it. Neither of us told her. The baker looked at us and smiled. Family breakfast? Claire quickly answered. Oh, we're not. Before she finished, Ava nodded proudly. Almost. Claire nearly dropped her coffee. Eva. What? I'm being optimistic. The old baker laughed. I like this little one. So do I admitted. Claire looked at me for a second, then quietly smiled into her coffee. Back in the backyard, the treehouse finally started looking like a real little home. We added windows, a tiny porch, and a rope bell beside the door. Ava rang it every 30 seconds. Ding. Visitor. Ding. Pizza delivery. Ding. Squirrel inspection. Claire laughed so hard she had to sit on the grass. I haven't laughed this much in years. I sat beside her. I'm starting to think Ava's actual superpower is making people happy. Claire nodded. She got that from her dad. A gentle silence settled between us. Then she smiled. You know, he would have liked you. I looked at her. That's one of the nicest things anyone has ever said to me. She looked away shyly. I just meant, I know what you meant. By late afternoon, only one thing was left. The roof. I climbed onto the ladder, carrying the final wooden panel. Halfway up, Ava suddenly gasped. Ethan. I froze. What? Your shoelace. I looked down. It had come untied. Claire immediately frowned. Come back down. It's fine. No. I'm serious. She stood at the bottom of the ladder with both hands on her hips. You spent 2 days keeping us safe. Now let me keep you safe. I climbed down. She knelt, without saying a word, and tied my shoelace herself. When she stood up, we were only inches apart. Neither of us spoke. Ava quietly covered her own eyes. I'm giving you privacy. Claire laughed. You can look now. I know, but this feels like an important moment. I couldn't stop smiling. So, should I finish the roof? Ava peeked through her fingers. Yes. But don't fall. Mom likes you. Claire's face turned bright red. Ava! What? Ai. Do. The backyard became completely silent. Claire looked at me. Then she smiled. I guess she's right. Before I could answer, a loud crack of thunder echoed across the neighborhood. Dark clouds rolled in almost instantly. The first drops of rain began falling. I looked up at the unfinished roof. Claire looked at the sky, then at me. If we don't finish it tonight, the wood will be ruined. We had less than 10 minutes before the storm reached us. The wind picked up so fast that the blueprints flew across the backyard. Ava chased one. I got it. It attacked me first. Even Claire laughed. Forget the blueprint. We already know what we're building. I looked at the unfinished roof. We've got one chance. You hand me the boards, I'll secure them. And Ava, she stood proudly. I know. Quality control. Claire smiled. No climbing. Ava sighed dramatically. Fine. I'll supervise from the ground. The first drops of rain began to fall. Claire handed me the last wooden panel. Careful. How is him? She raised one eyebrow. I've seen your shoelaces. I laughed. Fair point. Within minutes, the rain became heavier. We worked faster. Claire held the ladder steady while I secured the final beam. Ava counted every nail. 23, 24, 25. Then the last screw went in. It's finished, Ava shouted. At that exact moment, rain poured from the sky. We climbed down laughing and completely soaked. Claire looked at me. You know, you could have gone home. I shrugged. I made a promise to the toughest project manager in town. Ava smiled proudly. I knew you'd finish. The rain became too heavy to stay outside. We ran into Claire's garage. Everyone was dripping wet. Ava looked at us, then burst into laughter. What? I asked. You both look like sad wet ducks. Claire laughed. She's not wrong. Ava disappeared for a minute. When she came back, she was holding 3 old towels. She handed one to me, one to her mom, then kept the smallest one for herself. We all matched now. When the rain finally stopped, the sunset appeared. A huge rainbow stretched across the sky. Ava grabbed both our hands. Come on. She pulled us toward the treehouse. Tiny string lights glowed around the little porch. The fresh wood smelled like cedar after the rain. Inside, there was a tiny table, 3 small chairs, and something hanging on the wall. A drawing. It showed 3 people standing in front of a treehouse. At the bottom, Ava had written, "Best day ever." Claire quietly smiled. When did you make this? Last night. I already knew how today would end. Claire looked confused. You did? Ava nodded. Yup. I knew Ethan wouldn't leave until it was finished. I smiled. You had a lot of confidence. She shook her head. No. I just picked the right neighbor. For a moment, nobody spoke. Clara walked closer. I've spent 2 years avoiding this tree. Every time I looked at it, I remembered a promise that was never finished. She looked at the completed treehouse. But today, it doesn't remind me of what I lost. It reminds me of what we found. She reached for my hand. This time, neither of us let go. Ava smiled like she'd been waiting for that moment forever. I have one last house rule. I laughed. There's another one. She nodded. If you hold hands, you have to come back every Saturday. Claire looked at me. I think we can manage that. I was hoping you'd say yes. Ava threw both hands into the air. Great. Next Saturday. I'm teaching you both how to make I smiled. Any other plans? She thought for a second. Maybe. If everything goes well, I'll build a second treehouse. I looked at her. Why would we need another one? She grinned. For your future kids. Claire covered her face, laughing so hard she couldn't speak. I laughed too. The evening ended with 3 mugs of hot chocolate, a warm treehouse glowing under fairy lights, and 3 people who had started as neighbors, but walked back inside feeling like family.